Hi, this is Dan Heisman, and we're continuing with our series of videos to help you play chess better here on YouTube. Today I'm going to play another in our series of Think Out Loud games against the computer. Hopefully I'll do okay. Doesn't always happen, but I am higher rated, so I expect to do well, but higher rated player doesn't always win. Alright, so let's challenge the only computer that'll play me in non-rated games so I can talk out loud. Let's go to game, match, Beth O. Okay. Alright, there's the board. Gave me white. Let's fit the board into the screen. Move the screen a little bigger here. Okay, a little wider. Alright, let's see. That should be about right. Alright. So there's two ways to play against Beth O. You can try to outbook her, or you can try to take her out of the book. She plays weaker if you take her out of the book. Sometimes I play e4, sometimes I played c4. I think last time I played c4, let's play e4, see what kind of book she plays. Caro-Can. Okay, well, we could play the main line. We could play the two-knight variation. I don't know the two-knight variation very well. Let's play that. Knight c3. Knight f6. Okay. Knight f3. Bishop g4. h3. Bishop takes. Queen takes. See, if Petrosian did this also against Fischer, he gave up the bishop pair to put all his pawns on light squares. All right, so let's just play d3 to maintain the center. Could play e5, but that's not as much my style. On the other hand, e5, knight d7, I could play e6. F takes e6. d4. Interesting. All right, that's interesting. Let's try it. e5. Knight d7. So I'm thinking about playing e6 and then playing d4 and then maybe bishop d3 with some fun. All right, let's do that. e6 and then d4. Now we're threading bishop d3 and queen h5. e5 right away. Okay. So pawn takes, knight takes, queen checks, knight in the way, and then bishop out. Okay. Interesting position. Black's probably doing fine there. I could play queen checks right away. Queen checks g6. No good. All right, so we have to take the pawn first. All right, and now we play queen checks, knight g6, bishop d3, queen d6, and maybe castle. Or we could hit the knight otherwise. We could play like queen f5. Well, let's play queen h5 check. Knight f7. All right, so there's some compensation here. Let's play bishop d3. g6. Now I could play bishop takes g6. If he plays h takes g6, the rook is guarded, so I can't do that. So let's play against the center, maybe with either queen f3 or queen e2. Let's go queen e2. Bishop g7. Not worried about him playing bishop takes c3. So we could play bishop g5 to play against castles. Bishop g5, castles, queen takes e7, queen takes e7, bishop takes e7, rook e8 wins the bishop. All right, so I can't do that. Let's just castle. He castles. All right. So white's down a pawn, has some compensation. Maybe play f4, f5 here. Try to go after the white squares. f4, knight d6, f5, knight takes f5, bishop takes f5, rook takes f5. Rook takes f5, g takes f5, queen e6 check. All right, so let's give that a try. f4. Queen d6. We'll continue with f5. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3. Takes. All right, so his king side's getting a little weak. So should I take with the bishop? Should I take with the rook? If I take with the bishop, he moves the knight. I could play bishop e6 check. If he plays e5, I can probably play something like bishop f4 at some point. Can I play bishop f4 first? Bishop f4, e5 doesn't look good. Rook takes f5, bishop takes f5. Rook takes f5. If he checks and takes off my pawn on c3, he's hitting my rook. Rook takes f5, queen c5, check, bishop e3. Queen takes c3, rook doubles. That looks good for me. Rook takes f5, e5, then maybe bishop to d2 or something, followed by doubling rooks. All right, let's try that. Let's go rook takes. We're ahead in development. We have the bishop pair. e5. All right. So I could play queen g4 check, king h6, bishop h6, queen takes h6, so that's no good. I could play queen f2, or I could play queen g4 check, and he could play queen g6, and I play rook g5, and if he plays queen takes g5, his knight's guarding the queen. All right, so queen g4 check, queen g6, rook g5, queen takes g5, bishop takes g5. Queen g4 check, queen g6, rook g5, knight takes g5, bishop takes g6. Okay, interesting. Queen g4 check, king h8, and then I really don't have another square. All right, so maybe I should just play bishop d2 to guard the c3 pawn for a moment, and then double rooks and play on the king side. But in some lines, he's threatening e4, winning my bishop. Well, but then I could always check with the queen again. All right, so let's think about this. Check with the queen. If he goes king h8, he's not probably threatening rook g8. Let's see here. e4 is somewhat of a threat. Queen g4 check. We think queen g6, rook g5 works. King h8, and then queen f3, e4, rook takes f7, e takes f3. That doesn't quite work. All right, so e4 is a little bit of a positional threat here to trap my bishop. Queen f2 hits the knight. If the knight moves, and then I could maybe threaten to move the bishop. Queen f2. If e4, then bishop e2. And I'm okay, I'm pretty sure. If I play bishop d2 first and he plays e4, I don't think that's good for me. I think I need a place to put the bishop. So it's between queen g4 check. If I play queen g4 check, I can't play queen f2 or queen f1. Would like to play queen f2. Then he could play knight d7. C4 doesn't seem to help me much. Bishop to a3. Bishop a3, queen takes a3. Queen g4 check. King h8. Bishop h6. Oh, I can't play bishop h6. That's a retained image error. My bishop already got sacked on a3. I could play a4, threatening bishop a3, but then he could just play c5 at some point anyway. I think I'm better off just playing queen f2. Although after knight d7, his rook's guarded. I'd certainly like to stop that. Queen g4 check, king h8, queen f3, e4. That doesn't seem to work. Problem is knight d7 solves a lot of his problems. Do I have a more clever way of doing this? a4 doesn't work. c4 doesn't work. I think I'm just going to have to play queen f2. But then I have to watch out for a bad endgame if he plays knight d7 followed by something like knight h6. If I check on g3, I guess that could work in some lines. Queen g4 check, king h8. Can I play queen g3 there? What's the point? I don't see the point. All right, let's just play queen f2. Queen f2. e4. All right, so the bishop's got to move. I think e2 is the only square. If I take the pawn, doesn't seem to work. I could play bishop f4 first. Bishop f4. Knight e5 is no good, I'm pretty sure. But he could play queen g6, hitting my rook. And my bishop's attacked also. All right, let's just play bishop e2. Bishop e2. All right, so he hits my rook, but my rook's guarded. So I can play bishop a3. And if he moves the rook, what can I do then? Bishop a3, rook moves. Then I triple my pieces and he moves the knight. Then maybe I have rook f6. It looks interesting. I think bishop a3 is the best place for the and as long as he doesn't develop that knight on b8, I'm okay. All right, let's try that. So bishop a3. All right, so he hits the queen first. If I check and he puts the queen in the way, and I take the queen and he takes back, his pawn's attacking my rook. Okay, but this isn't really that bad. If I play queen f4 and he moves the rook, I can play queen g4 check, or I can play bishop h5. I can play rook f1. Interesting. Okay. So queen g3 check, queen g6. Can I move my queen somewhere with a threat? Queen f4. Threatening. If he moves the rook, then I have bishop h5. That's interesting. Queen g3 check. If he moves the king to h8, I play bishop takes f8, threatening mate on g7, and he doesn't have time to take the rook on f5. So therefore, he has to play queen g6. Then I play queen f4, and then when he saves the rook by moving the rook, I can play bishop h5, skewering the queen to the knight on f7, and he doesn't have any checks. So I think that works. So I think removing the guard on the knight on f7 first. Now if I play queen f4 right away, and he moves the rook, alright, so I play queen checks. If he moves the king to h8, I have bishop takes f8. That's the whole point. If I play queen f4 right away and he moves the rook, then bishop h5 doesn't work. So queen g3 check, queen g6, rook g5. By the way, I guess I should mention, you know, the reason I'm playing too fast for the time control, 45 generally takes a couple hours, is I want the video to only last about 30 minutes. So I kind of have to ignore Betho's time limits and play faster than what I would normally play at this time limit. So queen g3 check. If king h8, bishop takes f5, f8 should win, threatening mate. Can he play knight h6? No. All right, so queen g6, queen f4, threatening bishop takes f8 and bishop h5. He can attack my queen with a knight. If he moves the knight, I take the rook. If he moves the rook, I play bishop h5, and I think I'm winning a piece. All right, here we go. Queen g3 check. There it is, queen g6. All right, so you don't make the ABC error of playing right away. We got to recheck our analysis. So he's threatening to take my rook if I just move the queen to a random square, like queen takes e3, queen takes f5. So I can't do that. So the idea is to guard the rook and hit his rook, and then I'm threatening bishop h5. And if he moves the queen, bishop takes f7 check. All right, so queen f4. This is the idea. Right, so he has to give up the exchange. So now the question is, do I have better than bishop takes f8? Suppose I play bishop h5 first, and he plays queen g7. And then I play bishop takes f7. I don't think that works. And he's threatening c5. So I think I have to play bishop takes f8, rook takes f8, and then triple my pieces and then threaten bishop h5. Or even bishop d3. But I don't want him to play c5. Bishop h5, queen g7, bishop takes f7, rook takes f7. I can't play rook g5 because the rook takes f4. Bishop h5, queen g7, bishop takes f7 check, bishop h5, queen g7, bishop f5, bishop h5, queen g7, bishop takes f7, rook takes f7. Doesn't get me anywhere. So I could play bishop h5, queen g7, and then play bishop takes f8, rook takes f8. It's probably more flexible to just play bishop takes f8, rook takes f8, rook to f1, threatening bishop h5. I think that's correct. All right, let's do that. Bishop takes f8. Rook takes f8. All right, so rook f1 threatens bishop h5. If he moves the knight, rook f1. If he plays knight, moves the knight on f7, I can play rook takes f8, knight takes f8, queen takes f8 mate. If he plays knight on d to e5, I can play rook takes e5, knight takes e5, queen f8 mate. So I'm threatening bishop h5, and there's not a lot of defenses to that. I'm pretty sure. You can't threaten my queen. All right, so rook f1 to get my last piece into the game. Queen there. Okay, everything seems to win. I can play bishop h5. Then he could play e2. Then bishop takes f7 check, rook takes f7, rook takes f7, e takes f1. So maybe not quite as easy as I thought. All right, so let's look again. Rook takes f7, rook takes f7, queen takes, king takes. Doesn't work. Maybe I should just go after the e-pawn and play rook f3 first, because he's practically in Zugzwang. If I play rook f3, threatening rook takes e3, what can he do? I'm also threatening rook g3 check, followed by maybe queen d4 check in some lines. But the threat is just to take on e3 Bishop h5, e2 doesn't look like what I want to let him do. Queen g4 check. He could play queen g6 or king h8. Not sure that's right. I think rook f3 looks pretty good. I don't really see what he could do about rook f3. He can play queen e4. Then I could either trade queens and take the pawn. I have a lot of things I could do. I could play queen g3 check and then rook takes e3, but then he has queen takes f5. Well, I'm not too worried about that. Could play bishop d3 first. Then he still has e2. I could play rook to e1 then. Can't be wrong. Bad to have my rook on f3 though. Bishop d3 does prevent queen e4. Bishop d3, e2, rook e1 is pretty good. But he can put a knight on e5 in some lines. I think rook f5 keeps a lot of pressure. He still can't move any of the knights really easily. If he plays knight on 7 to e5, I can play rook takes e5. Can I? Well, maybe I can't. But I can always play rook takes e3. I have a lot of ways to win, I think, in that position. All right, let's play rook f3. I think I have more than one winning move here. b6. All right, so we just punted. And if rook takes e3, knight on d to e5. Rook takes e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5. Queen takes e5, rook takes e5, and I'm up bishop. Rook takes e3, knight d5. Rook e takes d5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5. If I play queen takes e5, you can take on f5. Rook takes e3, knight d5, knight on d to e5. I could play queen takes also. Rook takes looks more active. Then I could even play rook g6. Looks like I got a lot of good ways to play. So rook takes e3, knight e5, knight on d e5, rook g3 check, knight g6, and then I could play like bishop d3, something like that. Without that pawn, he really doesn't have a lot of play. Does he have moves like knight h6? I don't think so. All right, let's play rook takes e3. He just offers the trade of queens. Okay, well again, lots of good ways to play this. Rook g3 check. King h8, queen d4 check. Rook knight on d to e5. Rook takes e5, knight takes e5 looks okay for him. Queen g4 check. I could just trade everything off. Queen takes d6, knight takes d6, rook takes f8 with an easy win. That's true. Let's see if I can put him away, though. Queen g4 check. Rook g3 check. Rook g3 check. King h8. Queen g4 threatening queen g7 mate. Queen h6. Then I could play my rook to h5, threatening to remove the guard. Looks pretty good. All right, well, let's start with rook checks. Rook g3 check. King h8. All right, so queen to g4 threatens queen g7 mate. He can check me on c5, doesn't do anything. He can take the rook on g3, doesn't hurt me. If he plays queen h6, then rook h5, then queen g6, Then queen takes g6, and he can't play h takes g6 because it's pinned. All right, so queen g4. How does he stop mate on g7? Rook g8, queen takes g8 mate. Queen e5, rook takes e5. Queen takes g3, queen takes g3. Queen h6, rook h5. I guess then he could counterattack the queen with knight to e5. I guess that's a move. So queen g4, queen h6. Well, then I could play queen d4 check. And he can't play anything to f6. And if he plays knight e5, I have rook takes e5. Well, that looks good. Queen g4, queen h6, queen d4 check. All right, let's play queen g4. And he checks me first. All right, so I guess he could take on c3. No, he can't. The rook's guarding c3. So that check really doesn't do anything. Do I want to go to h1 or h2? If I go to h2, can he pin the rook? Doesn't matter. If I go to h1, does he get any checks? No. So it probably doesn't matter where I put the king. So let's go king h2. And he throws me a knight. Okay. So if I take the knight, I'm still threatening mate on g7. If I take with the rook, I'm threatening mate on h8. So rook takes g5, knight f6, rook g8 check, rook takes g8 is okay for him. So queen takes g5, queen e7, and I've got a million ways to win. All right, let's just play queen takes g5. Okay, so he stops the mate. I could trade queens. Oh, wait a second, I can just take the queen for nothing. If I take the queen, he takes my rook, I take his knight. All right, but I'm threatening mate after queen takes queen. So queen takes e7. He stops the mate. If I take his rook, it's not stalemate. Queen takes f7. Knight back, and now I have a million mate in ones. Let's mate with a rook instead of with a queen. Rook to g8.
Checkmate.
Okay. Was that my best played game? No, but hopefully that gave you some insight. And the game turned out perfect in terms of time. 28-minute video. That's a good one for the channel. Okay. Well, hopefully you learned something. These games where I think out loud against the computer give you some insight. I think the computer had, a good position for a while. He had the extra pawn. I was ahead in development. My move e6 was speculative. Probably not 100% sound. In fact, let's go back and look at that real quick with Stockfish 11. So if we do my history, we've got number 38. So examine 38. All right. So let's pull this up a little so you can see Stockfish's analysis. So Stockfish thinks that I should just play d4 here and that black's okay. And Stockfish thinks I should have played d4 in this position instead. Doesn't like e5 at all. So I play e6, he says, that's not sound. Pawn takes, says I should play h4. d4, he says his move e5 is good for him. Knight f7, best move. Now he's going to play e5. I play bishop d3. Computer says you should play knight d7 with pretty much a winning position. Yeah, I kind of thought I didn't have enough compensation here. We're kind of doing this for fun, just to see what happens. But, yeah, it looks a little dangerous for black, but it's not really. So he plays g6. I play my best move, queen d2. Bishop g7. Computer likes h4. I castle. He castles. I play f4. Computer says, yeah, just develop the knight. This is where, Beth Oak does me a big favor by letting me push that pawn. If he just develops his pieces, I'm fine. f5, my Disadvantage is down to 1.5. He takes, which is not a good idea. Now I have the advantage, 1 point. So giving up his dark squared defender bishop is not a good idea. Again, he should take. Computer says I should take with the rook and I'm winning. I take with the rook. He plays e5. It says I should play queen h4 check, king g8, and then bishop e3 winning. Huh. How about that? All right, well, I don't have time to go through the whole game, but you get the idea. At this point, now all of a sudden I do have a very good game. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the game. If you did, please hit the like button. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can also subscribe. See you next time. Bye.